Thanks everyone for coming again. I'm super excited to stand up here next to Joel and Jack. As Brent said, they both ran successful Kickstarter campaigns, completely in different industries and kind of niche markets, different styles of Kickstarter campaigns. And here we are today to present the different strategies and the different punchlines that if you were to embark on a Kickstarter campaign that you may want to know about and understand. Before we get going, is anyone doing a Kickstarter campaign like right now? Is anyone planning on doing a Kickstarter campaign? Keep your hands up. You got a few of you. One, two.
Sweet.
Cool. Anyone? Any entrepreneurs in the room? You got products, ideas? Great. Perfect. You know, we were all at this place at one time, and it's a relatable market, right? But before we begin, Jack, do you want to introduce a little bit about yourself and the Evergoods project?
Sure.
Briefly.
First, I want to say, guys, thanks for coming to listen to us. I think one of the biggest things for me in my career has been my willingness to talk to people that are smarter than I am, and there are lots of them in many different fields. And so the fact that you guys might think that I have something interesting to impart on you guys is rad for me. So I co-founded a company called GoRuck, which is a successful backpack brand that was started about a decade ago. My buddy and I built this brand up into a global, like, niche backpack company. I think when I departed from the company 2 years ago, we'd done $13 million in revenue that year. So not bad in 6 years of sales. I befriended a guy that was part of advanced research and development for Patagonia. Actually hired him for GoRuck when he left Patagonia and moved to Bozeman. And so I was thinking about what I was going to do next after GoRuck. Was sitting down talking about how I wish there was a certain style of pack that was sort of rad to use all day, but kind of crushed it when I got out and got active. You know, because we're in Bozeman, right? And we got those mountains right over there. But I'm usually working, right, or with my 3 dogs, or with my wife at home. And I do get out, you know, on the weekends a bit. So I wanted some gear that was sweet all week, and then when I got out and got active, Kevin and I thought, let's sort of try and do that. And we spent really about a year and a half developing an audience and a Kickstarter, and then we did it, and here we are. So yeah, man, we'll get into more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then Joel, on a different type of Kickstarter. So can you introduce yourself in the project of the Van Harrows?
Yeah. So hi guys, I'm Joel. Also really stoked to be here with these guys. It's been super fun putting this presentation together and learning a lot myself as we go too.
Yep.
So my project is called Van Harrows. I was a film student here at MSU. I graduated in 2012, and right after that, it was about 2 summers after I graduated, a couple friends and we all had been kind of working in Bozeman, not really working in the field that we graduated in, which is photography and videography. And we wanted to find a way to sort of like use these skills that we hadn't gotten utilized so much and do an art project of our own. And so we love doing photography, we love doing videography, we love traveling. And so we had this idea that we could combine all those things together in one project. And we had this idea that if we traveled from Bozeman to South America in a VW van, that people might be interested in supporting us doing that as we did portrait photography of people that we met along the way. So
and you could print them as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the whole project was to do portrait photography of people that we met as we went on this journey, and then print off those photos for people and deliver them to them right there. So we'd all done portrait photography of people as we traveled, but like had never gotten a chance to like reconnect or like show those people the photos that we took. So so our concept was this Van Harrows project where we raised money to go on that trip.
Sweet.
Perfect. And then different than these guys, as they were both the contributors of you know, coordinating the campaign. They were the owners of both of those projects. Myself, I owned a company called Triple Tree. We managed a campaign from a different perspective, completely different type, but still the same strategies and models. And I learned a lot from these guys on how to help Chilton Ski successfully fund this campaign. To begin with, before you debate whether or not you want to do a Kickstarter, lots of questions to ask yourself. And we'll hit punchlines throughout this presentation, but the very first one is to start with your story. Be transparent and speak to a relatable audience. And Joel, can you introduce what the importance is with Kickstarter and why it's a platform for telling your story?
Yeah, so I think Kickstarter is really uniquely a platform for telling your story, because unlike, nobody goes on Amazon.com and orders a product and it's like, hey guys, this product may or may not show up. It'll be there in 6 to 8 months or so, possibly. We hope so.
Or never.
Or never. We'll see. Do you want to buy this thing? Kickstarter is a completely different platform because people aren't really necessarily buying your product. They're buying a ticket to join the ride. They're buying into your story because they actually want to be a part of developing a product. Maybe they are like you guys and entrepreneurs, and they want to learn more about the whole process of creating a product or creating an art project, and they want in. They want to be part of everything that you're doing. So Kickstarter is a storytelling platform. It's not a sales platform. And so, that's the first thing to sort of think about. Every business, every product has a story behind it. Are you interested in telling yours? And are you interested in bringing other people into it as well?
And based on that process of learning what your story is and how you're going to tell it, it's dependent, right? It's dependent on how you define success within your Kickstarter campaign. And these two guys are great examples where Joel is funding a trip to tell a documentary experience where Jack is launching a business and releasing products. And those defining moments of success are far different when you're choosing those goal levels, right? Mm-hmm. Next key point would be knowing your costs and budgeting. And Jack, can you explain the different fees that Kickstarter takes from you, as well as how to properly budget and set that goal number?
Yeah, well, I think the last slide ties right into this, right? What are you trying to fund or do? He's trying to go on a trip, so how he thinks about what it's going to cost for gas and food and all that is very different than what I've got to think about. But the bottom line is the same. You've got to break out what it's going to do to have a minimum successful, viable project. So what I did is I knew that I had to build a minimum quantity of backpacks. I was doing 2. I know in America that I have to buy 100 of each. I then had to basically understand the development of those products, the fabrics, the materials, all the minimum order requirements for all of those. As it turns out, only buying 200 backpacks would cost me roughly, I knew, about 20 grand. But the fabrics I was going to use were made to order, custom, and had much higher minimums. So I was forced to purchase 20 grand of materials, more than I would have actually needed. But it was the only way to play ball with those fabrics. But I figured that out, and then I added in the fees. So for me, the funding goal really was to do my first production run only, plus a little bit of a buffer. This is going to sound nuts, but Kickstarter takes 5%. That stinks, but what they allow you to sort of amplify and tell your story, it's totally worth it. And then you've got your credit card processing fees. So I would build in that you're going to give about 10% of what you fund back in fees,
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention about defining your own success, obviously when it comes to me and Jack, are the numbers of how much our projects raise are vastly different. And my first Kickstarter project was actually just funding my senior film at school, and that was a goal of $1,500. So there's no shame in a difference of numbers. Your success in Kickstarter shouldn't be when you log into Kickstarter and you see that there's $1 million projects.
No,
out
you
there.
set a goal,
Yeah,
and you do what we're going to show you how to go through to achieve that goal, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do.
You're trying to build whatever you're trying to build, whether it's a product, a project, or whatever. And your goal, success is just meeting that goal.
That's right.
So when you put it in those terms, it becomes a little bit easier to swallow.
Totally, and no matter whether you're trying to fund a video project for your senior thesis, or whether you're trying to launch a new backpack company or raise that $5 million, the strategy and the formula and the things that you do are the exact same. Nothing changes.
Yep.
Minimal viable product, right? What is the least amount of money you need to start your business or to start that project or to move forward? Leave a little bit of wiggle room, because there is a post-Kickstarter campaign chapter 2. But
Can I just say something right there? We're gonna get to this later, but I wanna like drop in the theme like right now.
Drop it.
You wanna fund quickly, right? Like, it's exciting for people to like come and see something that's moving well. So the quicker you fund, the more exciting it is when you drive and bring more people in to see that. So you're doing yourself a service, and we'll speak again to this later, to literally, this is a great reason to be really sharp on keeping those costs down.
Yeah.
Don't shoot yourself in the foot, but try to have them as low as you can so that you can try to crush it.
Maybe don't include all the bells and whistles on your first goal, because that's what, you know, kind of the next step is. Like, if you're planning to do a Kickstarter, your first goal is just how to get to that minimum viable product that Sam was talking about. But that's not where Kickstarter doesn't cut you off when you, when you hit that goal. They obviously want it to be bigger. The bigger it is, the better story, right? You're like 200, 300% funded. It's a better story. And so, figuring out what your MVP is, it doesn't really limit you in your scope or your vision of your product. You can still have this full vision of what you want to do. Maybe Jack has some extra features in mind or something for a backpack that he wants to build. And he's still got to like just fulfill his minimums, but he knows that if he made more, he could do something else. And that's, a lot of people don't consider this fact. And so they aren't like thinking about, maybe what are we going to do after we fund? What are we going to do after we fund? You never know, like you might end up funding within the first couple days. And then if you don't have a plan, like how do you keep energy going? Because you got 30 more days.
Well, also points of contact through, right? Like you want to maintain a dialogue with whomever it is, a base you've activated, press, whatever else.
Yeah.
And these are things that you can continue to discuss.
Yeah, so for like a backpack, it could be a feature. For like a film, it'd be like, oh, maybe I could shoot another scene or something like that. Maybe I could add in an extra bonus for our project.
Yeah.
So when you look at the really, the most successful Kickstarter campaigns, you'll see their first goal is maybe 50 grand. And you'll see them go up to 5 million, 8 million. It's because they set their goal at that minimum viable product, and they use stretch goals to get there. Stretch goals are very key though, because you need to plan them out far in advance. So often you see that a campaign will get built, they'll fund with like 3 days left, right? And they'll be, I read online that I need to do stretch goals. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna wing something and just throw stretch goals out there? Sure, that'll work. You'll gain $3,000, $4,000 more dollars, but if you plan it out right, when you're trying to define your success and learn what your story is, when you're slowly uncovering what your story is and how you're gonna tell it, keep in mind stretch goals, right? As they were saying, a backpack. Maybe you add another feature. Maybe when they're doing the film, that stretch goal is a behind-the-scenes cut. Maybe that is the unseen, never before told story. That whatever it is, like keep people teased, because that's how you continue that momentum and interest and engagement in that story. This is probably, after telling your story, the most important and pivotal punchline that we would present to you, and we went back and forth on this for the last week, and this is where the guts of an entire campaign lies. And we'll kind of break that down to the 80-20 rule, and that would be, Joel, can you explain the 80-20?
Yeah, so 80-20 is a pretty common rule in marketing that you find a lot. And it says that basically, like, when it comes to a Kickstarter campaign, what we defined it as was that you are personally responsible, if it's your campaign, for funding 80% of that goal. So a lot of people come into Kickstarter thinking like, man, Kickstarter is a really sweet network. There's going to be people out there who are going to see my project. They're going to become interested. They're just going to like what I have. And there are. That's just 20% of people. Most of your funds are going to come from the network that you already have or a network that you're currently building. I mean, with us, with my project, it was probably even more like 90% or something like that, because our intention was to get all the people that we knew to finally like put money behind something that we were doing, because otherwise if we just like walked around and asked them for it, they were never going to do it. But building like a campaign and showing people that you're serious is a really good way for people who know you to like get behind you, get inspired, want to get behind a movement. But I think plan for having to do 80% of that work yourself. Like if you do 80, the other 20 will come, and that's awesome, right? Like that's going to help fill everything.
Yeah, you've set your costs. Now you need to figure out how you're going to reach those goals. So if you set your costs at 10 grand and you figure out how many people you know in your direct community that might give you $50 or whatever, just literally add it all up, and I'm short what? That starts to help you have like an outreach strategy just in those people that you know. Evergoods drove 75% of its $163,000 from my newsletter or press that I engaged for us. 25% of our funding came from the magic foo of Kickstarter's sorting algorithm that when you're trending high will raise it up when people are going on and searching latest or this, that, or the other. When I saw these numbers, because somebody from Kickstarter spoke here, and I was able to get a beat on sort of that math that I'm going to drive 75%, my heart shrunk into my stomach because I was like, Jesus, I want to make $1 million. I'm not going to drive 750K. That's impossible. But that's the reality. This is part of what then jumped me into realizing that I better get bold on how I am going to build an audience. And for Evergoods, I threw a Hail Mary. I decided I was going to run a weekly behind-the-scenes blog.
Let me pause you on that.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Totally.
So, as these guys are saying, it's again different, but in Jack's scenario, right, he was asking for 45 grand. That's how we budgeted it out with raw materials, with shipping, where these things are being manufactured. We can break it down, a simple formula, right? His backpacks were $200. He needs 225 backers to fund this campaign. They went on to have like 600, right? But let's do the math. When you're trying to activate your network, 225 people, right? But there's a catch. You must fund 50% of your goal day one, right? If you want to keep that interest and excitement and engagement going, you have to fund 50% day one.
There's a catch to that.
So you need 113 backers day one out of your network, right? Can you write down a list of 113 people today in your network that you could call and they're going to fund your campaign day one? You probably could, maybe, right? Another catch, only 20% of those people that said they're going to back your campaign are going to actually convert. More math, 20% of that 50% day one, you now have 23 people. If you need 113 people, you have to multiply that by 5, which means you have to multiply that 225 by 5. Your network now needs to be 1,250 people, right? So what do? You can't fund completely off your own network. You don't have the confidence to guarantee that. Don't launch. Take a step back. Think about your story. Define success. Or build a bigger network. And that's where Jack was going here. Jack, what did you do to build a bigger network?
Truth is, man, I was freaking out about how I was going to do this, and I listened to a podcast by a guy that I identified with who started Sitka hunting company, and he worked there for years and then left, and he was sort of a real product-driven guy, and then he wanted to start another business. You, it's called, and he's crushing it, this guy. And he said that he'd started this blog, and he just didn't know that people were going to care, but he was going to just sort of like pull up the curtain and share what it's like to build a brand. And he was able to galvanize and grow a list pretty rapidly. Now the hunting market, probably a little easier to like set gasoline onto than the broader global backpack market. But I thought this guy's got something. I'm going to start a blog, and even if we don't grow an audience, it'll allow me the opportunity to learn how to tell my story. Whether anybody's listening or not, it'll force me to write posts, take pictures, figure out how to get it on my website. And so I started that, and then what I did on top of that, because of my experience at GoRuck, there were press outlets that thought it would be interesting to talk about us. So I was able to leverage some press that coincided talking about that I was launching a new company, and we were able to get 300 signups for our newsletter the day that I turned the blog on. And then at the end of the campaign, I did a giveaway for emails with the same news outlet, and I got another 300. That's crazy, right? That's 600 newsletter signups. I had 1,000 signups the day that we pushed live on that Kickstarter. So 600 of them came from me looking at what's available to me and trying to make the most of it. And all of you can do that. It's going to be different depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, how many of you guys are sort of like not sure that you'd be like a good writer or something, like not sure that you could make a blog or something like that? Because Jack, like you yourself,
I'm
have
not
no confidence
I'm not
in
a good writer. I don't believe.
And I want to like shift the perspective on what good writing is a little bit, because over and over again, Jack said, "I'm not a good writer. I'm not a good writer." And I kept being like, "But Jack, like, are there 1,500 people now on your newsletter who want to hear you listen?
Yeah, we're at about 1,500 now. Yeah.
Listen to you speak." So, like, good writing may not be like eloquent writing or something like that. It's a story that people can engage with.
Honest.
If you can tell that,
Truthful,
if you can
right.
just sit down and tell something that other people are going to, I mean, even if like 10 people are subscribing and listening to you, those 10 people must think you're a good writer, right? So,
Yeah.
and you probably learned a lot, I would think.
Yeah,
from doing
well,
it too,
I knew I didn't want to get lost trying to like sell people and turn this into some prose-driven storyline. I just wanted to be sort of honest and real about the like weekly steps in building a business. There were typos. I mean, my wife is like an English major, and it's pitiful, really. But I was honest, and I was most importantly, I was persistent. When I told you I was going to do it, you were worried about my ability to execute, I think, but I did it every week, right, for about 9 months. So honesty, persistence, know your story.
Exactly. So your main goal is to activate this network, and you're going to build a network, and they touched on it. But there's ways to do this, and you hear about networking all the time. Linda throws networking events. That's person to person, right? You can do it on the internet, and that's your most effective way. I mean, if you're trying to launch a project with your friends to take photos and film a documentary, your parents and your family network is probably where all your money's going to come from, right? But if you're launching a backpack around the globe, it's a lot different. With Chilton Skis, 80% of that funding came from George's extended family and friend network. But through a website, and Joel, can you speak to this? I mean, when I first talked to Jack, I was pitching to have my company build his website, make it look phenomenal. But for those who may not have any experience building a website, what would you recommend, Joel, for getting this platform off the ground?
Building a Kickstarter for a product, like as a college student or something like that, as somebody who's like fresh out of college, do as much of, like, there's tools out there, like Squarespace, that allow you to build a website on your own. And it's such a good opportunity for you to actually like hone your message and learn about, you're gonna like sooner than later be at ground zero, like writing your Kickstarter proposal up. And if that's the first time you really thought about putting your message on paper and writing it, you're gonna be like, oh shit.
You mentioned yesterday the same thing, is that when you get one of these plug and play themes, which I used Shopify because I one day wanted to sell, these themes are pretty out of the box, but they're watered down to sort of meet the general criteria of what like a website should do. But this does something pretty magical. It forces you to tell your story within the constraints of the platform that you've chosen, and that is frustrating. But you can do it, and you can still tell that story.
Yeah, and definitely go. If you're in the Kickstarter, that's where you are in a state of mind. And keep in mind, we're still far pre-Kickstarter. We mentioned, the Kickstarter platform a couple times, but we're still 3, 4, 6 months out before even making a Kickstarter page. Website is key. What do you do with a website? You drive traffic, you tease the idea that you're doing a Kickstarter, and the number one thing that you should keep in mind, number one to building an activated network, is gold equals an email address. That's an email address is the most valuable thing you can ever have in your possession, and that's how you quantify your network.
Yeah, and remember we want to fund early. How are we going to do that? We're going to get people to the dance early, right?
And how do you get people to the dance? You blog, and we talked about this a bit. But blogging is your journal. This is your primary means to telling your story. And when you're forced to tell your story day in and day out, and in Jack's case, it was on a weekly basis, you're forced to really think about it and think about why people care. And Jack, you had an incredible blog, and you mentioned that I gave him some slack that I didn't think he was going to be able to do it. Most people can't, right? But Jack went so above and beyond and blogged like an essay once a week and put it out every Friday in the email newsletter, and you got engagement. Can you speak to that engagement and that conversation you started with your audience?
I think here's the thing, right? So before I sent that first blog, I like mapped out like 60 blog posts up, like leading up to the campaign launch, and then it was time to like write the first one and press play. And all of a sudden it's like ground zero, because you wrote that thing, now it's out there, you start to get some feedback. And then I was sort of week to week with how I did. I started to get some interaction from people and see what's sort of resonating and working. And then I started to sort of allow that feedback be the conversation back to me of how to drive the narrative. Here's the trick with that. For me, I got to a point where I asked people what colors I should make these backpacks out of. They love that. It's easy for them to comment on, like, oh yeah, green or black. I could have made post after post sort of like giving them these easy opportunities to feel like they're a part of this, but that would have gotten in the way of the overarching storyline that I wanted to tell them through that blog. So I understood what I wanted it to be, then I let them sort of participate, and I tried to stay sort of truthful to my goals while pulling their engagement in. And it was crazy. So even, I had a blog post where I had like 90 comments one week, and a major press outlet that I'd been like trying to like, you know, take interest in us, that's actually when they reached out to me, because they were following the blog. They were ignoring me, but they were following my blog. And the moment they saw that level of engagement, they were like, hey, how about I have some pictures, we'll put it on our Instagram feed, you know?
And the reason this works is because, you know, in the context that we keep talking about telling a story, like beating it over your guys' head, but the reason why blogs and telling your personal story is so powerful is because people are starting to be tricked into thinking that they are actually a part of it. Like the people who are engaging with it, they're there from the very beginning. They see you struggle to make a backpack. They see you cutting out like shapes before it even looks anything remotely like a backpack. They all now are invested.
Well, it's easier to support a person with a name than it is like a company, right? Like, oh yeah, I buy from Black Diamond or whatever, but it's powerful for people to be like, I bought Jack and Kevin's bag, and that means something to people, right? So it gives you the opportunity to start that trust going. And these people that we're activating now, if we convert once we get to that Kickstarter and we do all the things that we're putting here, you have got these people forever, literally forever. You're literally building a foundation that you can grow with.
And Jack didn't touch on it, but it's easy when you're starting out to be like, I want to portray that our product and our company and our vision is so dialed. Like, I want people to think that we're legit. We are Black Diamond, right? But pouring your heart out is something that when they're being transparent in their blog and in their email newsletters, they're saying, hey, we don't know what to do today. Guess what? We just lost our manufacturer. We're screwed. But we're going to figure it out for you guys, right? They're telling you all of their problems, and they're telling you everything that they're trying to figure out, and they're telling you why this is so hard, and they're telling you that but this is where we're going, and this is our vision, and thank you for being a part of it, right? And email is one of Joel's core competencies. And Joel, can you speak to how email is the conversion zone?
Yeah, I mean, it's really basic, actually. When we're talking about the 80-20 principle that we were talking about before, we talked about how your metric really is how many email addresses you have. Email is like the only guaranteed form of communication that we really have in the digital world. You can start social media accounts, you can start Facebook, Instagram, but you're not guaranteed to hit...
Pay to play, right?
Yeah, you pay to play, and you're also, like, those people haven't really committed like they might if you have their email address because they're like getting your email newsletter or something like that. That means at some point they decided they were interested enough.
They're giving you something.
They're like a level deeper than like a social media subscriber, right? And so you gotta give them something a little more than you're maybe giving just everybody on the public. You're giving those people even more exclusive access to your project, even more transparency, because they're the people who are really that 50% funding on day one. That's gonna come from your email list.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and everything's tied together, right? When we were talking about the website, we're talking about capturing email. How do you capture email? Well, you tease the Kickstarter. You say, hey, follow our story, sign up to follow our story, and then once you get into the email, because they're following your story, you're sending them an email, and an email is maybe the 30 most juicy sentences, or 30% of the most juicy parts of that blog post that you pump into the email. And you say, hey, we just released a new update about our story, and there's a call to action in that email that says, you know, see the whole process of us wireframing our photo documentary, or see how we determined what materials worked best on our prototype backpack. And then they link from the email to the blog, and they see the blog. And then at the very bottom of that blog post, you're like, hey, thanks for staying tuned. Thanks for being a part of this journey. We can't wait to fill you in when that Kickstarter launches. Hey, we don't know what date yet, but stay tuned, right? That's how these things interact. And these guys spoke about social. Social is just as important as email, blog, and website, but they all have their own piece of the pie, right? Some are. It's like a funnel of sales. Social is where you're creating a pulse to your brand. You might not see anybody go from social to buying something, but social makes you look alive. That's how they know that Evergoods exists.
You can go from social to a newsletter sign up, though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you use it as a trap to like little glimpses of content, and if they're interested and want more, and you of course have to say, link in bio, sign up for newsletter. If they like that, you'll see you're starting to drive funnel traffic into that newsletter through your social.
Totally, and keep it real on it's funny, but keep it real on like social, because everyone there is like a normal human being, you know, just like you. If you're saying, you know, go to my website and sign up for the email, that's spammy, right? How do you just tell your story in an organic, real manner? Because your following are real people. And Jack, you had some pretty interesting success with your Instagram stories.
Yeah. During the camp. Yeah. So, you know, IG Stories sort of came about like when I was developing this, and I don't really know how to use it. And using IG Stories actually helped me begin to frame out how I was going to sell my backpacks. Because like, what were my backpacks? And I decided that they're ergonomic and they're feature rich and they're accessible while you're wearing all these things that you won't comprehend right now, right? Because it's a bunch of shit and I'm boring you already, right? But using stories, I would just take the bag out during the day and like start it off like, here's a day in the life, and I would just like clip the different features like throughout the day. People went crazy for this actually. And that's gone in a day, right? So if I do a bad job, it's kind of gone. But if it's working, I can learn from that and keep going. I actually realized that's where I learned how I was going to sort of structure the progression of my feature discussions in the photography and in the video for my Kickstarter campaign later. So like all this work we're doing is preparing you and sharpening your focus of how you're actually going to execute that final Kickstarter project.
Joel, can you speak to, while you're doing all these things, you're speaking to your audience and your network, why is that so valuable?
It's valuable because generally people, people who actually end up supporting you, it's not because it's going to be like the first time they've ever interacted with you before, right? They're actually probably going to have been interacting with you for a really long time before they actually decide to commit. Nobody really goes to a Kickstarter page, sees something for the first time, and is like, all right, cool, I'm going to buy it. They have to be a part of the story too. So by doing all this, like social media, by creating interactions with them, that's what we call touch points, basically. You're creating a touch point with your customer, and generally you need like 8 of those until somebody actually commits and wants to like convert, maybe go deeper, join your email list, maybe buy your product later on down the line. But all of this, like Jack said, is just foundational, right? Like what you're doing is you're building these audiences. Maybe these people aren't quite engaging yet. Maybe they're throwing a like here and there, but they're becoming more and more part of it every day.
That's right.
And we'll get to these touch points in a second, but the last piece we want to touch about on building that network is PR or public relations, or however you want to talk about it. But I remember, or most of the really successful Kickstarters that you see, you might read about it in Forbes, or you see it in the New York Times, like, you know, maybe your dad shares you, like, check this out, I know you're interested in Kickstarter. And when I was in that position, in the back of my head was, wow, with Chilton Skis, if we could just get a Teton Gravity research article, right, we would make it. All of TGR's following, 1 million people are going to see Chilton Skis, and we're going to make it, right? Or if we could just get Bomb Snow or Outside Magazine or any of those massive ski publications, we would make it, we'd get funded, it would be awesome. We got a TGR article, and nothing happened, right? We didn't get a single more email tracked from that article. We didn't get purchases from that article. It didn't do anything for us, and that goes back to the 80-20 rule, how it's 80% of your own network. And if you can't fund off your own network, it doesn't matter. Jack's scenario is a bit different. He comes from the industry. He's well known in the backpack industry. He had lots of connections through the press. Can you talk to us on how you leverage that?
Oh man, I started writing people about Evergoods like, man, 10 months before we did the Kickstarter. Like I started talking about it to these press outlets, like, hey, I left Dork, I'm doing this thing. I think the sooner you're on people's radar, the more you're going to give them the opportunity to want to help you tell your story. You know, I made a list of, you know, like my 25 top tier press outlets from Outside Magazine to Uncrate, Gear Junkie, Gear Patrol, whatever. And I think I got like 15 of them in the first 2 days of my campaign. And this was 10 months of emailing and asking, and I need to get you a sample, and also understanding what blogs I'm reaching out to, what's their content work like on a weekly basis. You want to make that job easy for that editor, that writer, right? They're getting pitched by like 1,000 people a week. You want to be like, I've got this thing, you write this like weekly gear thing on Thursdays, I think would be a great fit, here you go. It's plug and play for these guys. Sounds like a lot of work. You have a great point about sitting down to write this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you really only have to craft one email that you could then send. I mean, if you made a list of all the outlets that you wanted to hit and just be super generous with it, like just throw 100 down, even if they seem like way out of your range. All you got to do is collect an email from all them, write one email, and you just copy and paste it, and you change it.
And then tweak a little to like hit the
you
right.
could spend one day and you could hit like 100 outlets, and if you get 5 of them, that's a huge success in my book. I mean, it took you a day.
Again, it goes back to that same 80-20 rule, though. If you are going to focus on leveraging PR and outside articles, if you still can't fund off your own personal network, this doesn't matter. Go back to square one and build your network.
And I'll add, the largest conversion we got was from a Gear Patrol article. I sold $5,000 of bags from that one article. So it's 25 backpacks, right? This is an outlet that has like 2.3 million monthly unique visitors, right? It's like massive. I sold 25 backpacks, right? That's amazing. I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to take $5 grand of that 163, but that's a small portion of that total number, right? So that 75% that I drove, that's 5%. I drove the other 70 from my newsletter, you know?
Keep in mind, we're still not even launching, right? The PR is something in your mind as you're defining your success and your story. The website, all of those, how they work together. It's time to get closer to the campaign. You're beginning to set up your product shots and your descriptions and the video. We all know the video, right? When you're creating a compelling video, make sure your products look good. You guys both created very compelling videos. How did you approach it? Joel being a film school major and Jack not having the film skill set and contracting that out. Maybe Joel, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, you know, also back to just the number on our project, it was a pretty low budget thing. So even if we weren't film majors, we probably would have tried to make the film ourselves. I mean, we all have iPhones and we all have the capability of learning editing software. It's pretty accessible now. So I would really recommend, if you're going on a shoestring budget, make the film yourself. For the same reason I said, like, make the website yourself. It's a great opportunity for you to sit down and really critically think about how you're going to tell your story. Or approach somebody in the film program or something like that. If you know you want to give it like an extra level, look shinier than you know you could do, go to the film program up at MSU. Maybe cut in a filmmaker like 2-3% and see if they'll help you make the video. Like, there's a film major right there. He's open for business. So I mean, I'm a huge fan of if you're not in the position that like Jackson, where he's actually launching a whole business off of this and going for some like larger numbers, do as much as you can yourself. But in Jack's scenario,
we knew this would be the area that we spent the bulk of our money for the campaign itself. Obviously, we designed and built out a workshop. We had rent for for a year and a half, whatever. But that's got nothing to do with my Kickstarter. For the Kickstarter, the video and the photography content is what we really spent our money on. 95% of successful Kickstarters have a video, okay, and people either watch or they read, right? Like I sent my Kickstarter, you get like a share link to some major press editors that were kind enough to say they'd look at it. And I get like feedback, I didn't know this yet, and I got feedback back from one of the guys, and he said, look, I don't see anywhere about this, your pedigree at GoRuck and these backpacks. And I was like, dude, did you watch my video? It's like in there. He goes, I don't watch videos. This is the founder of Cool Hunting. Go to Cool Hunting and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's one of the longest running men's style blogs, okay? Doesn't wait, he reads, right? So I think it's got to be in the video, it's got to be also in the copy.
And contradictory to what these guys did, as I mentioned earlier, I was a third-party contracted company that ran someone else's entire Kickstarter, right? We charged $3,500 and we took, for that video, and we took 8% if it funded. Think back to know your costs, right? Mm-hmm. If you did that, I mean, we took like $7,000 from this dude at the end of the day, on top of his 10%. All of a sudden he made 30, all of a sudden he's down to like 18, right? That's kind of crazy. I met Jack pitching him to take all these business.
I know, you totally did. One thing, by the way, I didn't put that money that we spent on our video out of pocket. Kevin and I paid for that. We didn't want to include that into our funding goal, even though my numbers guys like, you're insane, you got to recoup that cash. I'm like, no, I got to fund immediately. I have that money. We're just going to pay for it. We're paying, we're going to pay for it anyways, whether we sell you a product to get money or not. So that cash was not in my funding goal.
And yeah, as much as I wanted to do the Evergoods campaign, like, he's a smart guy to not touch what we were trying to do, right? Like, to do it organically, but he focused on the video and those product shots. They look beautiful, right? And that was extremely valuable to boost your image. Now you're outlining tiers and pricing, right? What is your product? This goes back to defining success. Tiers for Joel may have been far different, and they were from Jack. Joel, can you talk about when you're setting up your tiers and how to price your goods for that FOMO slide that's next?
Yeah.
FOMO.
So does everybody know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah, and this actually has more to do with stretch goals, I think. But when you're talking about like tiering out and pricing, I think Jack actually has a really good point here. You should do as few tiers as possible. You should make it as simple as possible, right? Because a lot of people are like, God, I want people to be able to support my project at any level, right? But then if you have
I got
like
a sticker, a hat,
it's $1, $5, $10, $20.
So like, when I because I've been in business before, when I think about that, I'm not thinking about the like $5, $10 I made. I'm thinking I gotta order that, I gotta warehouse it, I gotta ship it, I gotta deal with it.
Yeah.
We didn't do it because we didn't want to deal with it after the fact. We wanted to focus on backpacks.
Yeah.
So that's how we approached it.
And we did it a little bit differently because we had a lot of things where we didn't have to fulfill physical products. A lot of our rewards were sending people photographs from the trip. We could send people newsletters or videos from our trip that we could send to a whole block of people who supported us at a certain level. So
Definitely.
So think about that. If you're mailing out a sticker or something like that, that's literally like a physical thing you have to do one by one. If you're going to deliver digital products or something like that, you only have to make it once and send it out to an email list or something.
Yeah, because you're going to sell this thing, but eventually you're going to have to fulfill whatever that means. It's sending a photograph or it's sending a backpack, and hopefully you've done well enough where you're starting to have a little business to run, and you're answering emails. Now you've got customer service going on. You've got factory engagements, you've got all this stuff happening. I was able to look ahead and say, what do I want to be doing in the months after the Kickstarter? It's clear for me. I want to make these backpacks, I want an amazing manufacturing partner, right? So I can deliver on the quality of product that we say we're going to give to people. Then I'm going to start developing the next product. Yeah. I don't want to be shipping out beanies or Nalgene's or whatever. There's no wrong answer, by the way. I could have done it, and it could have been great. I just chose not to focus on it.
Totally, and think about when you hit a Kickstarter landing page, right? Tiers go down the right side.
It's true.
And if you see $1, $5, $20, and I have to scroll all down your 26 different tiers before I see the backpack that he's trying to actually sell, that's not a good experience. Alternatively, you're running a business through Kickstarter, right? You're in a business. How do you run a business? You determine what thing that your business provides a consumer has the most margin to make you profit. $1, okay, if it's going to cost you 50 cents to make a sticker, and it's going to cost you a quarter for a stamp to ship it, you're in 75 cents, maybe you charge $1.50, right? You're making 75 cents a sticker. Or you have a backpack that's going to cost you $100 to make, you're going to make $100 in the margin. It's really easy to figure that out, but think and be honest with yourself, like, why am I doing this, you know? And I put that FOMO sign a little bit further, but increasing FOMO, we go back to, as you were saying, the stretch goals, but more so the super early bird. And what do we mean by that? Jack, you can introduce this. He has 3 tiers of the same product.
Yeah, so this actually ties back into my activated group, like my blog, right? I had this strategy, and I think a lot of people use, is that we're going to have this super great deal. There's a finite amount of them. And then I started to tease first I teased that the newsletter was going to get access to this like special thing. And I used social to sort of tease that if you wanted access to this special thing, you better sign up for my newsletter. And it worked, and it sort of grew. And then eventually I just told the newsletter, this is what you're getting, and I'm going to alert you guys via a special newsletter the day before we launch to everybody else that we're live. And I think as Kevin and I were having a beer 4 hours after launch, we funded $45K, and then went out and had a hamburger and some whiskey and celebrated, you know. But it works.
And look at this. So these are the 3 exact same products, but he teased that that you might miss out if you don't act now. Look at same product. There's 407 backers here. Everyone was afraid they were going to miss out on 199. Look, there's a 209, 42, right? If there's a total of like 461 backers right on the same 3 products, 80% of them were afraid of missing out.
Yeah, the people that bought the more expensive ones didn't know how to use Kickstarter and like accidentally paid more than they had to. Like that's really what happened.
When people land on your page, how long do you think it takes before they determine whether they want to fund or not?
Guess.
30 seconds? 15 seconds.
Lower.
5 seconds.
A little higher. Less than 10. People make that decision in less than 10, right?
Yep. Make your products look good, make your tiers relevant to them.
Okay, so there's this, I think this is probably one of the most killer secrets in doing a Kickstarter campaign. Remember how we said earlier that you have to fund 50% of your goal on day 1? There's a little trick that makes this a lot easier. And so we call this day 1 equals day 0. And basically what that means is you have your audience that you've built, right? You've got this network that you've built. You have their email addresses, hopefully. Maybe it's just a list of your friends and family that you're going to hit them all up on Facebook, whatever. You've been talking to them about the Kickstarter, building it up, telling them about this like special exclusive deal that you're going to get them in on. They've got all this FOMO building in them. And you actually maybe publicly are saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to launch this Kickstarter on August 25th. But for your exclusive group of people, you're actually telling them you're going to launch it on August 24th. And so your non-public, like secret launch, day 0, is actually a day before you actually go live to the rest of the world. And this is the day that you get all those people who've been promising that they want to support you and that they're going to help you out to actually commit. You tell them it's super vital that we get it on this first day. You care about me, you care about this product. If you want to see it built, because Kickstarter is all or nothing, they want to see it get built too, right? They want you to fund. So it's super important that you fund me on this day. And what this does is it gets all these people who are like, they're your best contacts, really. They're the people who have been following you for the longest amount of time. They're most likely to fund. Get them to fund that first day, because when you go ahead and launch the next day officially, you're going to have some hopefully pretty significant amount of money in the bank before you do it. it. So now people aren't landing on a Kickstarter page that says, hey, we just launched. And they go and they're like, wow, you really did just launch. This is $0. Like,
so think that Kickstarter algorithm, right? Like drive that traffic day 0 with your activated group, right? Then day 1, hopefully you've got, and if you're doing something that needs press, get them to drive that press in their day 1 if you can. And then that article will go live. Now they're sending traffic your way. And they're also seeing, oh man, this is like already going on.
Right.
And
everybody likes a good story, and it's a better story if people are like, whoa, this backpack company just
we've
launched
herd
today?
mentality, right? People are more likely to press that green button if they see other people doing it. Because it makes you feel good, like,
Has a phone.
yeah, this is it's FOMO.
So as they're talking about that really key part of your network, right? That's not your entire newsletter network. That's not all 1,250 emails that are in your list. That's you saying, calling every single one of your best friends, all of your family members,
People you know.
all of those people that you know personally, calling them, writing the personal email. This isn't through your list. Say, hey, hey Paul, like I know you've been following this. I know, like I'm so appreciative of you supporting this. Just want to let you know, if you are interested in backing this campaign, it is pivotal that you do it tomorrow. And I'm going to open up it exclusively for the, others like you, and let them know that. So as these guys said, when you open up to your entire email list, they see that it's already
I mean, it's part of pouring your heart out. Like, just tell them it's really important. This is you launching your business company. It is the most important day of the whole campaign, for sure. And so this is like, I mean, this is the best piece of advice that I ever got about Kickstarter, and we've all done it.
Yeah.
We've all used this technique, and we've all had success when we did do it. And so
the cool thing is if you spend all this time, months, in advance out telling your story and trying to grow your audience, you won't even have to. Your closest friends and family, they're gonna have seen your efforts and your hard work. You don't even really have to tell them how important it is that they come early. They've seen you doing this work all this time. You've already shown them that you are as committed and behind what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I really found great about watching Jack run Evergoods versus when I was working with George on Chilton is we got a call. We started working with Chilton about 3 months before. He's like, we were launching in 3 months. We're like, shit, like all right. So we built that network in 3 months, right? We barely funded. Jack took his time, and I met with him over a year ago, and he's like, I think I'm gonna do a Kickstarter. And he started the blog, the web, all that for a year before launching. This isn't an overnight thing. And while you're preparing for this Kickstarter, it's also not a side hustle, right? Kickstarter is your only job. If you're saying like, oh yeah, I'm running a Kickstarter on the side, but I'm doing all this other stuff, why are you doing a Kickstarter? This is a business. This is the launch of your business. Even if it's just a video or product, it's to be taken extremely seriously.
I think this is especially important while a Kickstarter is running. If you have 30 days of doing your Kickstarter, just like block it all out. Be like, those 30 days, if I put 8 hours a day into like contacting people and reaching out to as many people as I can and just networking, it's really all just networking, right? And if you're kind of unsure about your network, like, and even if you're not, you can spend 8 hours a day reaching out to people. And if you treat it like a full-time job, your chance of success is so much higher. And it's hard because there's a lot of trials and tribulations associated with doing a Kickstarter that we'll get into. But if you keep that mentality that, it's just my job, I gotta do it, it's super beneficial.
We're about to show you a drawing, super intense matrix that we follow, and it's been consistent with every project we've done and all of the ones that we've seen in the past. But it pretty much shows you that all of your sales come in the first 3 days and the last 3 days. Joel, can you speak to this funding curve? Can you speak to this fund? I did this on my phone in the drawing when you're sending the text. But can you speak to this funding curve and more so the mid-campaign?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's true. Like, you can go on a website called KickTrack, and it'll show you. You can type in any Kickstarter campaign, and it'll show you the graph of how their funding went. And you gotta click on like one of the links that actually shows you a day-by-day graph, because that's what we're looking at right here. What your funds look like day by day. But this is how it always works. Because of the nature of like launching a product, people are excited right when it launches. That's when the most energy is there. And then people are excited right at the end when there's almost no
So
time
you're likely to
left,
get
right?
your press all up, everything's kind of all up front.
Yeah, it's all about scarcity, right? Like at the end, there's all this scarcity because your product's going away. It's like having a pre-order
So,
that ends.
and how many people came in here and didn't actually press that buy button? How are you going to get them to come back and be a part of this here?
Right.
By doing the work, that 8 hours a day that he's talking about, you sit and say, every day I came in the morning and I looked at like where I was at. I actually reached out to 150 press outlets. I had 25 that were my top, right? And then I had a list of all my friends. I had my newsletter. Every morning I reassessed what press did we get, what came in, where am I? And I made a daily strategy of this is what I'm doing on Facebook today, Instagram today, this is who I'm re-emailing. I gotta share this press with these people to try to, and I did that all through this stretch.
So the nice part about this is like this, what we're calling the slump here, is if you know that it's going to happen, it can actually be really empowering, right? Because if you make 50% of your goal in that first day, 2 days, 3 days, and you like get most of the funding then, but you know you're going to slump for like the next, I don't know, 14.
Knowing
18.
doesn't prepare you for how it sucks.
It sucks, but if you know it and have confidence in it, maybe you won't drop off in that like work that you got to do. Because people, the number one thing that's going to happen to people who like don't succeed is they get part of the way there and then they're like, this is impossible. How am I ever going to hit the rest of my goal? And they give up during that slump. That's like the danger zone.
Yeah.
Because like you're gonna want to give up
This
because
is,
sales are gonna trickle and you have this awesome start and you're like, whoa.
I think this is actually it's one of the most profoundly important stretches of the entire process of leading up to the campaign and then during it. Because if you're like me and some of you guys are gonna want to launch a business, I didn't start this to fund a Kickstarter. I started this to like build a brand. I want to do this for the next 30 years. And if touch points are what I got to do to get to, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm here, this is prime opportunity right here of where you're putting in all the work and there's no tangible reward that you're seeing. But you're doing it and you're working, you're planning, you're just plowing through. And I think that's what's so critical about it. Is you're laying a, Kickstarter's laying a foundation for everything else that's going to come beyond that.
And it's laying a foundation for you as an entrepreneur too, because we like to like kind of refer to this as a microcosm of just being an entrepreneur in general. Like, if you've got to be able to handle these times where you're still coming into the office and like working and not necessarily always seeing what that work is turning into. Right?
Yeah.
So
This is what
if you can do this, you can run a business.
This is what Paul and I's business looks like on like a quarterly thing, right? Like boom, and then nothing, and it's Kickstarter. But one thing that Joel pointed out to me a while ago is when we were about to launch Children's Keys, we're like, all right, we want as much time to get all of this, right? So we were gonna do maybe like 5 weeks, right? The more time, the more money we can get. And Joel, maybe I'll let you elaborate on this, but you said shrink it.
Yeah, well, okay, so think about like a month-long campaign versus like a 2-week campaign, right? All that you're doing is shortening this amount of time. Because if this is your first 3 days and your
The
last
slump's
3
going to
days
be there no matter what.
The slump exists, but maybe you consider running a shorter campaign because you don't want to deal with all
Kickstarter
that
will actually say the same thing and recommend you do the shortest possible campaign.
I would recommend it.
When you see like Nomadic or Peak Design do a 60-day campaign, they're spending $500,000 in Facebook advertising.
Yeah.
They actually don't have a slump. They're able to buy a trajectory that's even, but that's like at a different league, man. That's like at a whole different like level of gaming that system. For everybody else, it's this.
Totally. And it comes to trusting the process, right? It comes to the 8 touch points that Jack mentioned earlier. You never stop the email, you never stop social, you never stop the blog, you never stop telling everyone how exciting this process is. Your story just doesn't end. And in the title of this workshop, we named it, it's all or nothing, because it is. If Kickstarter, if you don't fund, then you get nothing. So you might as well go all out. And the other part was, and that's the easy part, because the moment you do fund, because you told the right story, you knew your budget, you activated a network, you built an even bigger network, you made a compelling video, right? And then you used the 8 touch points and got through the entire process and you funded, you're not done. You have to deliver. And your story doesn't end because now you have a massive network that's following you, and it doesn't stop. You keep running that business.
Keep in mind, one of the first slides was like people aren't buying a product; they're buying a ticket on the train or whatever. And so, if like this is the moment your Kickstarter just succeeded, like now this is when the ride.
Now they want to start hearing about.
For them.
Yeah, how are you going to give me this thing now? What's that like?
So,
you proved market validation. You learned what worked and what didn't. Maybe Instagram was terrible for you, right? Because you were targeting old people and selling like wheelchairs. Maybe something else worked really well. You now have a business. Cut out all the stuff that didn't work and use what did work. That's just how it works. You now have a loyal customer base. Now you need to nurture them. It's chapter 2 of your story. Kickstarter chapter 1. That is what we have. Jack introduced this quote to me. I'll let you read it, Jack. But it's pretty much the tell-all of Kickstarter.
Yeah, so Peter Daring is the founder of Peak Design, and they've done like 6 years in a row of Kickstarters. It's like one of the most successful Kickstarter companies ever. And I read and listened to articles and interviews by him, and eventually I wrote him a note and said I'm doing a thing, and now we're buds now. He said this to me, and he'll say this in interviews if you go listen to podcasts where he's talking about. And Kickstarter is not a magic pill. It just amplifies everything else that you're doing. I did not realize this. I thought, man, I'm getting all this press. I'm going to make $1 million. The truth is that all that hard work I did was amplified by 25%. So think about that. That 25% is directly proportional to how big your 75 or 80% is. So like work on that, focus on that, and you'll grow from there, you know?
What's sweet is Jack's turning around, you know, next year and doing another Kickstarter.
Same,
if he amplifies by 25% every year.
Yeah, we're
it's a bell curve.
July 11th, doing it again. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions? There's got to be some questions out here.
I have a question going back to like emails and stuff.
Yeah.
You're sending out your blog posts on Fridays.
I made that up.
I did.
That up
Yeah. He forgot.
What day was it, Jack?
You don't know what day I sent him an newsletter. I did it Thursday morning.
Okay.
And so here's how I figured out like how to do that. I thought Mondays are terrible because people are getting in from a long weekend and catching up. Don't want to do that. Tuesday morning seemed like a good time, but I felt like all the major brands were like already like wait until after Monday and kind of dropping in. Not midweek. So I like settled. I like used some logic to decide Thursday morning, and then I just decided to be consistent, and I sent it out within like a 15-20 minute window at the same time every week. And I
That's actually the most important part. Like it doesn't matter what day you choose to do it so much.
Yeah.
You know, like
Consistency.
some people will be like, don't do Fridays, don't do Sundays, whatever. Like there's all these reasons not to do it. Just do it at the same time every week or every 2 weeks, whatever. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, it just was consistent. Yeah.
Was that like before work, right when they're settling into work? Because
I set it at 10 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time, and Google like. Be like me, even though I like founded a company that's really successful, I never like ran a newsletter. I Googled like what are best times to send newsletter. That's like what I did. I like ran it like
Use MailChimp because it's free.
Yeah. And I think I decided okay, it's in the East Coast where I think I'll have some like residents. It's like lunchtime, so people, and then 10 a.m. is actually a good like mid morning, like I'm gonna like quit working for 5 minutes time. So that's how I, you know.
What else?
Did you pre-write them though? You pre-wrote them, right? Or did you?
Did I write? Well, I mean, if you call them writing, but yeah, no. I wrote them sometimes like up until right when I would send them because, as you know, the guy who actually can make professional-looking emails. When I decided to do this, I'd never written a newsletter. I didn't know what MailChimp was. I like didn't understand how to integrate it with like the Shopify theme I got. Now I know how to do all this stuff, right? I know how to do it because I've done it 60 times, you know what I mean? But the blog, because it's not that complicated. It seems alien when you're trying to figure out how to do it. Now, do my emails look like Arc'teryx's newsletters? No. But people know that, and they don't.
That's the part of
That's all about it, because if you write your blog beforehand, he can post that on Tuesday or whatever, but then he just takes the most interesting and juicy content and puts it in an email, right? And the fact that his website didn't look beautiful and the email wasn't beautiful, it all tells a story. Like, why is he doing Kickstarter? Because he's being honest and he's trying to raise money for a business, right?
Yeah.
Some of the best email marketers I know just do plain text emails completely, like no formatting at all. So
yeah,
I would put an image and like a little text, and I try to make them as short as possible, to be honest, because the more I wrote, the more errors I would have.
I mean, something to consider if you're sending it from the perspective of a person like Jack was, like he's sending it as though like we're buddies. I'm sending you a personal email to your inbox.
Yeah.
Make it plain text. Make it look like an email that you'd get from your friend because Jack is your friend and he's sending you an email.
Yeah, I think I think I like hate marketing. It's like a necessary evil. What I hate about it is I think that everybody lies to us. Right? I think all the brands that market us, like, sell us some bullshit story that's not true and not real, and they just do it because they think it'll fucking resonate with us, and like, oh, I'm gonna like go buy that thing. I hate this. So when I all of a sudden was responsible for marketing, Jesus, what am I gonna do? I don't know. I don't have the skill sets. These guys are way smarter than me than like understanding the matrix of how all this stuff fits together. But what I could do, and I think we talked about it a lot here, is just what am I good at? What do I care about? Well, I am good at getting these cool backpacks made, I think, and I like to maybe share. That's enough for me, right? So, like, knowing yourself and your strengths can be enough. And then I didn't spend money on these things. I would have hired him in a heartbeat. He pitched me amazing proposals. You know why I didn't hire him right away? Because I didn't know what the hell was in that proposal. And money, seriously, it was so impressive to me, like, wait a minute. One thing I learned in my last business was if I'm going to work with people, and I managed dozens of people at a certain point, it's crazy. I got to a little bit understand the job they do, and if I can't have a basic conversation with them about what they do, who the hell am I to lead them? So it's kind of that. Like I knew I had to like do this marketing thing, and they came in really professional. And I was just like, I can't pay this money, I have to like get dirty,
Did you love writing your blog?
Yeah, I loved the idea of it.
Did you like it?
I
was trying to trick you into saying that you like marketing, actually, because you...
So I really do I like it when I can control what I think is an honest narrative.
Yeah.
So now I think I really like
That's
it.
it.
Yeah.
I think when Jack was talking about hating marketing and being honest and it coming from him, and Joel was like, make it come from you, like it was coming, like you were talking to a friend, right? With Chilton Skis, I wrote every single email.
Yeah.
But I said, sincerely, George Gaines, like, nice talking to you, buddy. Totally, like, the marketing lie that he was talking about, right? Like, we pretended we were George the entire time. It was my team standing behind our computers, writing everything, promoting ourselves as George Gaines, but we put that image on there.
You know what blows my mind about that? Like, at GoRuck, we never had a PR firm that lasted more than like 3 months, because we had built this brand we were really proud of, and this language we thought we understood, and no PR firm we felt could ever like understand that language as well as us, and they'd get some press written about us, and we'd think it would be off message, and we just fire them. And, which is lame, we should never hire them in the first place, but that's distillation down between, like, if you don't know your story and you can't tell that story, there's no way in hell he's going to be able to do it, right?
Yeah, for sure, and I told that perspective because if you're doing a Kickstarter, you have to run it yourself, right? If you want it to truly be successful, if you truly believe in it, it's different if you have a massive company and you just don't have time to do it, but it's through a Kickstarter. Yeah. Any other more questions? Matt?
When you started doing your blogs and stuff, what was your beginning audience, and what do you think like brought the most in there? Like, what was the best strategy that you used to get more people to get involved?
Yeah, so I don't really know how many people bought bags from me at GoRuck that are now supporters. I know that they know who I am. But really, what got me a readership was that I got Carryology.com to write an article about Evergoods and crossover equipment that they published like the day I went live with my blog. And I got hundreds of Instagram followers and newsletter signups like that day. So I sort of leveraged some other things that were going on. I also was very active in some online backpack forums, you know, just like super like, hey, and everybody knows who I am. But I always come with the attitude that like, that who the hell am I? Like I'm nobody, right? And I don't talk about my shit in these forums. I don't talk about like, my bags are great or whatever. You know why? Because at the moment I do that, the moment these people feel like I'm selling them, then I'm not a member of this community. I'm some dude that's in here because I want something from you. It's that marketing stuff that I don't like, right? So I just stayed in there, like, and I like, commented and got stoked about other brands that I don't like the products of. But that's my judgmental self. But to be curious, to be in that forum with these people that are excited, I did that in like, you know, 3 or 4 groups, and then they sort of like spread the word in some other forums. So I think there's any number of ways that you can think about how you're going to like drive people to like be aware of what it is that you're doing, but certainly leveraging some
and when he's in those forums, you know, it's something like, you know, sweet pack, hey guys, like, you know, I'm working on a pack and I'd love your input on this handle. Can you guys like help me determine if this is the right handle for what different markets? It's never like go to my website and check out my packs. You know, it's asking for help, it's asking and being transparent and taking advice and feedback, even though Jack says he didn't need it. He already had a vision for his next 4 packs already. Right?
Yeah. Well, and then what happens too, right? It's like herd mentality. Like before I don't even have to say, hey, I'm like go to my blog every week. Somebody else in the forum will come in and be like, yeah, go to Jack's blog. He's like actually sharing all this. They'll start to do that work for you a little bit, you know.
More questions?
You guys said email was gold, right?
Yeah.
The like conversion rates have gone down extremely, like since 2000 or whatever, let's say. And like how I found Evergoods was I followed Justin. He took photos of Evergoods.
The guys that we hired.
I found, you know, but obviously I didn't jump into Kickstarter, partly because I'm a college student or whatever. But that did bring you a new follower. Like, how have like followers converted into sales? Like, because Justin's audience is 30K,
No, I don't.
Right.
So I had 1,000 signups when I pressed go. 300 of those emails bought a Kickstarter package.
So email is gold, maybe the followers are like bronze or something. Like
Yeah.
that. They're there.
Yeah,
They're valuable. The goal is to convert them into email subscribers because then maybe you'll convert them into
So like if you
customers.
look,
like there's an email person is so much more likely to be a customer is the thing.
Yeah,
Like,
like
how many,
when I posted on Instagram and Facebook almost daily through the campaign, not daily, but multiple, you know, every other day or whatever. And I had a strategy. Facebook was for like sharing press. Instagram was for sharing like product detail or whatever. And if you look at the Google Analytics, that's like tracking back from Kickstarter, sales weren't coming from Instagram and Facebook. They're coming from my website. So what I think, but I'm certain people that are on IG and Facebook heard about me there or whatever, but eventually I think they go through my newsletter first to like filter back through.
I mean,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Do you project the blog and the newsletter through your Insta though? Like you said, your Insta's for product detail. Let's say
I did. I mean, I made my social media up until the launch of the Kickstarter was about driving you to my blog. Like I literally used those to like market this blog. The moment my Kickstarter went live, everything became about funneling people to Kickstarter. But the goal was getting those emails. That was the goal.
So when we did our project, I think we had like 7,000 or 8,000 Instagram followers by the time we like went live with our project because we were fortunate enough, like we were photographers, so we could fill the Instagram with cool content. I mean, we had like
Which is
a
way more than I had,
1985 Vanagon, which just looks cool on Instagram. So like
all
these people are like pouring in to like see cool photos, see pictures of the van. Right, zero Kickstarter supporters came from Instagram. So that we've had kind of an inflated sense of like, oh, we're gonna do way better because of this.
I like to look at it from like a digital marketing equation. Your blog is 100% of the content. You take 30% of the blog and you put it in an email, and then you take 4% out of that email and you post that 4% 5 days a week, right? blog is the big picture. Grab a chunk out of it, put it in the email, grab 5 little pieces of the email, and post one of those pieces a day on social. That's how I approach that.
Just once a day.
I think twice a day is what you should do if you're a big company, but it's hard, man. Like, if you truly do this right, you won't have anything else that you can do.
I posted twice a week on Instagram and Facebook from like last December until about a month or so before the campaign, because I had a tough time creating the content, right? And then I knew, once I hired Justin Kaufman and I got like all those rad images he took for me, and I like had like hundreds of images that were like really badass, I started to post more frequently leading up to the Kickstarter. And that study wasn't as much about the Kickstarter, it was that I'm going to drive people to the Kickstarter, but I'm going to get all these press, like major Instagram, like shout outs about what we're doing. I also want likes before I funnel into my newsletter. So I wanted that feed to start to look kind of dope, to give it, have some really beautiful content. My content was honest and real, but if you scroll to the bottom of my IG, it's like a dude in a shop trying to make a company by himself, right? It's honest and real, but it's not going to like grab you tons of IG followers. It resonated with the types of people that were ready to follow me from day one. But as you evolve and grow, people are going to start to expect a different level of execution from you. So,
we'll keep our answers shorter for the sake of time.
yeah, sorry.
You guys jump in a convo afterward, but more questions?